I connected with all the churches in town because I knew the churches would have questions because they're not used to paying property taxes, but they would pay a tax.
Right, right.
So I had a lot of conversations.
Well, I can also share with you what other communities have done, and I guarantee you, you're not alone. Every community that I've ever worked with in the state of Oregon and California and Idaho and Washington, they've gone through this struggle. This is a constant struggle. We don't want it. We don't want it. I pay my taxes. Streets are supposed to be free. There is a mentality out there, I know we talked about this, that somehow streets are free, and they're not. We know that. What at most communities, I think, we've modeled the ordinance that you've got here from Newburgh. They spent 2 years and $100,000 in consultants and legal fees to craft their ordinance and their program. And what they did is they, as I'm recommending that you do, is for those 146 commercial and industrial customers, that's a really manageable number. Send them a letter, tell them what we're proposing the fee to be, give them 60 days to respond to the order, and still have, as your ordinance shows, an appeal process. That seems to be endlessly fair to me. And it's worked for other communities across this state for sure. So I don't, once again, I'm telling you, this is not a logistics or an implementation problem. Mayor, you're right. You spent a week and you talked to what, 20, 30 customers?
Yeah, I think it was 23 or 24.
We got 146. This is manageable, absolutely manageable. It's a policy issue for you folks. So I'm going to leave it there and let your conversation between yourselves go. I'll be a resource for you for anything else you want. Go ahead.
I do have one question that I think you could answer. Of the communities that you cited, the ones that you had listed for us, how many of those communities were afforded the opportunity to decide for themselves whether a tough fee was appropriate for their community?
To my knowledge, it was never referred to the voters.
Okay.
None of them. Not a single one. And I'm going to tell you, this is why you get paid the big bucks. Because if you're going to ask somebody to vote to increase a fee or a tax, it's not going to pass. And you're not going to get any revenues or roads or bridges or anything. So that's just my...
This is why they're doing the tough in lieu of a gas tax. I understand that, and that's what bothers me about it.
Some have done both.
Mm-hmm.
Some communities have done a local gas tax and a TUF. Mm-hmm. And some of those have worked pretty well. It brings up the issue of competitiveness and so on, but they are getting their roads repaired. Michelle?
I just want to add on to what you're saying or clarify a little bit. There was a lot of discussion about a gas tax, and it wasn't so much that the TUF was chosen over the gas tax because one is voted on and the other one isn't. There's a lot of drawbacks to the gas tax in that people are using less gas. We're going to electricity. The gasoline rate at the time that the committee met was skyrocketing, and they couldn't see adding on a tax. We had Bill Spencer, who owns the 76 station, on that committee. So he was able to give the committee a lot of insight into gas tax. So while it may be something that comes down to, the gas tax would be referred to the voters, whereas the TUF is not. That wasn't really part of the decision in making the recommendation. It may have been part of the discussion, but the committee was, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were on the committee. The committee did look at the gas tax and did not feel that at the time it would be appropriate. That doesn't mean that the city council can't revisit that, and tell staff to go back and do a gas tax as well. But the timing, at the time the committee met, the gas tax would have been really detrimental because gasoline prices were going up and are still high. And the committee didn't want to add to that.
I got a question kind of off the gas tax. Was there a scenario where they collected too much or too little? You know, where inflation changes, labor rates change, some bids end up being better than others.
My experience, and I'm clearly not, I don't know everything, but my general rule of thumb is the gas, or the toughs that are being collected never is enough to fulfill the master plan needs. And as I think you're gonna see, and I think you're all experiencing it, cost of construction, particularly construction, are going up much faster than the general price level right now. So that even with these tough fees coming in for some cities like West Lynn, that's $16 a month. You're thinking $4. They've got to defer projects because they didn't have enough revenue to cover the cost of their projects. Is that always going to be the case? Maybe not. I'm not advocating for a massive recession, but maybe that's what we need.
There used to be good old days when we used to get O&C funds. Those were wonderful days. We had money to do streets, and the streets that were put in were beautiful. Those funds were
Right.
generated through timber. Those funds went away about 20 years ago. And I don't think it's coincidental that everyone now, 20 years later, is seeing that they have road problems. Roads last about 20 years. That's
Yep.
about their
Yep.
lifetime.
Well, it's my concern is, I'm with Stacy in a bit of, I'd rather have the voters vote for it, but as a homeowner, $48 a year is not that bad. I'm more than willing to pay my fair share, but there's other people out there that might struggle with that. But I also want to make sure that we're getting enough, and that next year we're not revisiting this and then raising $2 more, and I don't condone getting into something and then it just keeps going up and up, and I'd rather just get with what we're pretty sure we need, that we can confidently say the next 5 years,
Well,
over the road.
the problem I'm not going to fib you. Your existing revenue sources, that first layer of money, it's getting smaller.
Yeah.
It's getting smaller every year. And the vehicle miles traveled of people in cars is going down. And the fuel is going away. So we're going to have to go away from our current motor fuel tax approach to funding roads, and are going to have to go to a different model. And we've been struggling with that. I think you might have heard ODOT is now doing tolling. People's heads are exploding over this. But how can they provide $1 billion a lane mile for a highway? The costs are just massively exceeding the resources. So to tell you that we're just going to do $4 and never revisit, I'd be lying to your face, and you know it.
Well, small city like this, at least we can kind of control the contractors. In a big city, there's a lot of backdoor stuff that's happening, there's no doubt. And that is the reason why. It's not just because it's a budgeting issue, it is bad people in high places that take advantage of people.
And there's a ton of small cities that have, Veneta, they've done it a couple of years ago, and they faced the same struggles and hand-wringing that you did. Yeah, but they're at $6, I think. So the answer is diversify your revenue sources is my suggestion. Maybe think about a gas tax. Maybe think about legislators in Salem going, look, we're going toward electric vehicles. We've got to have a revenue stream from those electric vehicles to help them pay their fair share of use of the roads. And
that right there, the electric doesn't even pencil out anyway.
Oh yeah,
No,
I hear you.
none of it pencils out anyway, so that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
Did you have a question, Councilor? Oh, sorry.
I think I pretty much got it answered. Thank you.
I was just curious of, like I said, the fluctuation of projects, things change. I want to make sure, going forward, again, you know, a lot of us are pro doing this, but I want to make sure all the questions are answered, and that if I tell somebody I voted for this and this is why.
You know, the
and then
best
a year
thing
from now
we can
change
do
it, I'm going to be livid.
is the summer after next, see those out there doing paving projects. That is the best proof in the pudding.
One of the things that's in the ordinance that was added was that it will be reviewed on an annual basis. That gives opportunity to change it.
Which is good. I just want to make sure,
Well,
and you would be the one to answer or ask.
It would go up.
Oh, yeah.
It may very well go up, but it will be a group of people citizens included,
Yeah.
who make that decision. So it's not going to just automatically be something that staff adjusts. It's not going to be something that city council just automatically adjusts. It's going to be a cooperative,
Which is important.
yeah.
How did we finalize the $4? Originally, I know it was $1.25, but unless I missed something, I don't know where we ended up on the $4 exactly.
I can help you with that.
Okay.
That $1.25 was malarkey.
Yeah.
It was just
I
malarkey.
agree. That's a waste of time.
And the $4 is, we looked at, Jim came up with a really nice little approach. And he said, what is the hole that has to be filled? Think about it, it's
Yes.
how much of a hole do we have?
But the bare minimum,
The
basically.
bare minimum, and that was the $4.
Okay.
And I mean, the math is there, and it's certainly, it's irrefutable, and it's easy math to understand. I mean, it's not,
So there's room if it went to $5 and change it, 25%, what more could we do?
there you go.
And maybe that would get us to a 5-year plan, to protect what we're doing, and rather than, I'm not that guy that goes back. If I say I'm gonna do it for this is what I'm gonna do it for, whether I lose money or not, it's my butt, it's my fault. I want city to kind of be the same.
Whatever we collect will be for streets.
Just for
I mean, it's not
Right.
like if we say we collect $5 and we have something left over, it can be used for anything else. It'll roll over into the next project,
Okay.
which will probably, and I have to look at Cliff, be D Street?
That's next on the list.
D Street.
C Street is.
D.
What is the real, what's the highest priority? Second.
Second.
Second's the highest priority. And, in Public Works, there's never an ending to this.
Sure.
It's relentless.
We need taxes, we gotta have infrastructure. I can get behind that. I just wanna make sure,
Right.
we're a smaller community, so I don't have
I
to
hear you.
concern ourselves with, people being cheated, but it's still, I've not been a part of a budget yet, so I don't, we're about to do that, but I haven't been a part of it, so I am kind of playing catch-up. I know what a budget is, I can make a budget all day long, but I've not been a part of Crestwell's budget, so therefore I don't have the exact knowledge, or some of the knowledge I'd like to have to help make this decision as well.
Right.
I think if I recall, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we were originally at 375,
Yeah.
which was slightly below the 250,000 deficit, and the 4 put us slightly above it. Correct?
Correct.
And that's where we landed at the $4.
Right. And that's the nice thing about those calculations, is we solve for how big is the hole, how much, and then we knew exactly what we were billing. And the other thing is, I keep harping on this, is you really are a monolithic community. 93% of your community is residential. So that made it a lot easier to do forecasting of revenues. And not to say that those 146 commercial and 136 commercial and 10 industrials aren't important. They absolutely are, and we're going to reach out to them individually, is my recommendation. I mean, that seems to be pretty good customer service to me. And it seems like a rational thing to do. Remember, they're customers.
I will share, sorry, okay, I was gonna say, I will share that when the roads committee met last year, we had 3 business owners who were serving on the committee that were recommending the TUF. So Kelly Coughlin from the Roundup Saloon, Bill Spencer from the 76 Station and Point S Tires, as well as Chelsea Pisani from the Crestwell Health. It's not a health mart.
No, Crestwell Health and Wellness.
Health and wellness, so not a mart. And all. And what?
And Pazos.
And Pazos, yeah. All 3 of them were absolutely in favor of it and understood the commercial, or the impact to their business in that recommendation. If the ordinance moves forward the way that it's presented, then it would go to the Water Rate Advisory Committee every year, which has built-in community input into that recommendation. And so this last year, so Chelsea Pisani was on that committee, as well as Dr. Behan. I always, if I want to make sure I pronounce his name correctly, but from Emerald Valley Dental.
Yeah.
So we do look for that input and that perspective.
I'd like to hear more from the industrials, just because there's tend to be higher paying jobs and more employees, and
There's
there's
10 customers there.
there's more money, more revenue generated to the city. No offense to any of these small business owners. I run a small business. I only got 10 employees, but, you know, they are a bigger portion of the revenue for the city, so it's important to kind of get them on board as well.
And that's
I think
why our
what you suggested
recommendation
is a good idea.
to reach out and talk to them individually, because they are that important. And that also they have the ability to challenge, you know, we're gonna tell them, this is, Mayor, you did this. We told them here's our proposed fee. You got 60 days to tell us why we're wrong, and you've got the ability to challenge it and to tell us what it should be.
So what you're proposing is to do it, and then after the fact, do reach out?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
So
Reach out now.
before
Reach
we
out
vote
now,
on it?
before.
Okay.
Well, now,
Now,
you're gonna have to
You
give
said July
guidance.
1st is the deadline, and I'm like, that tells me you're saying vote on it first and then worry about the reach out. Tell them, hey, this is
You can
the,
direct staff to do what the mayor had done. He's already reached out. I suggest you reach out now.
I've talked to people, I'm just
Yeah,
asking questions.
absolutely. I mean, they're customers.
Yeah.
They pay us. We like them. Jim?
A couple questions that you and I talked about at the beginning. We touched base on the square footage. We're using the assessor's data, and some of that's archaic and could be incorrect, and we need to be able to reach out to those businesses and make sure that verify the square footage is correct.
Oh, and you're gonna find I call them neither fish nor fowl. Remember, we're using the ITE manuals, land use codes as general guidelines. Well, we're gonna find some that don't fit in that box, and we're gonna have to come up with a solution and a negotiated way to come about doing that. Or a factory that has half of its facilities been shut down for 20 years with no intention of ever using the other half, well, then we're gonna downsize the fee. I mean, just common sense and customer service is what you wanna do here. And it's completely doable because it's not this huge number and we'd have to hire a staff of people to come in and do it. Like I said, it's one phone call effectively between the three of you per day, per business day. That's doable. That's all I got.
Any other questions?
To that, for Jim, I got one for Jim.
Michelle?
To that, Jim, if something was to happen, do you have like a ballpark figure, a percentage, 3%, 5% that might change if, say, the square footage was off, or, you know, some of the information gathered from?
I don't have a ballpark. Steve, do you have any idea? You've done enough of these.
No, the answer is no. It's a case-by-case basis, and you just gotta see how the cards fall, you know? And you gotta be fair. I mean, you gotta be perfectly outright and transparent with these folks that here's what we think. Are we right or are we wrong? If we're wrong, where are we wrong? What do you think?
So from the ITE being the baseline, you really don't have a figure or an idea of the adjustment that can come off that, or?
No, because it has to do with what's developed on the ground, what's on the ground for each of those. I could say, you're a log skidding operation, and they said, well, we haven't done log skidding in 40 years. We make plywood now. And Jim wouldn't know that,
Yeah.
you know, so we'd have to, oh, okay, now we know what's going on the ground. Know your customer, you know? That's really what we're gonna do here. Michelle?
I still come back to the mill we have here in town.
Mhm.
Now, you're not gonna use the square footage of a mill to determine the tough, are you? I mean, that's just,
No, what we'll do is we'll go back to the ITE, which I've got them in my computer here. It's what they are is big statistical abstracts. And we'll take a look at it and we'll say what that's driven on is a trip generation, and we probably take a look at per employee in that case. Because the statistic then is we would have an understanding of trip generation based on employees. Square footage is silly on a mill. But if you've got 120 employees, that's a demonstrable statistic we can look at, and the ITE manuals do cover that independent variable based on employees.
I think with the ITE, I just raised another concern though of how accurate are they, because if it's not that accurate, we can either
Yeah, I mean,
be to the good or really to the bad. I mean, without that information, then
This is always the case, is we're looking at, ITE statistics are based on land use observations across the country for that type of land use. That's all it is. And that's a statistic that gets published and it's verifiable, and that's it.
And to that point, Steve, we've narrowed it down to two categories: high traffic, low traffic. So there really is, if we had a bucket for every ITE code, I guess what I'm getting at, if we had a bucket for every ITE code, then there could be a lot of changes to the businesses.
That's right, and you've capped your trips at 40 trips. 40. So you've effectively said we've got high traffic industries and low traffic, and then for those 146, we're driving off of that. So we're not, we don't have 17 different categories of transportation traffic levels. So it's a good way to get the ball rolling, and it's fair and understandable. And I'm the first one to tell you, if you've got a rate structure that no one can understand, then you don't have a rate structure.
We have a question for the gentleman in the back.
If you got the model for like the mill property with you, are you able to take a look at that and tell us what that might be?
Sure, I don't know. It seems like we're getting down in the weeds here. I mean, if you want to, I can.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
I'll leave it to them.
Okay.
This is their meeting. Do you really want to get into the weeds now on statistics?
I'm a constituent, I own the mill.
I know, I get it.
You're saying you have it with you, that's why I'm asking if you have it with you, is that something you're able to?
Do you want to do that? I mean, this is your policy session here.
Is it something that's going to take hours and hours to explain?
It could. I mean, we could get, I'll pull it up on my computer here, but for employees, go ahead, Michelle.
It's something that maybe we as staff could sit down and talk to you about.
I think that would be more appropriate, where
You
we
know, in
could.
that phone call and letters that you were talking about?
Yeah.
Because we're gonna have to come up with an estimate, and we're gonna have to negotiate what that looks like for you. Because you have, as far as I know, 0 footprint. It's your businesses that are going to be paying this fee, and they're gonna be paying it based on either the number of employees or square footage or something like that.
Well, it's something that gets
But
added
it's
to
not
triple
gonna be
net.
on raw land.
Right, I understand that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think,
And
I
generally
was curious.
speaking, your industrial trip generation is very low relative to things like a McDonald's
Sure.
or a coffee shop.
I just caught the comment that you said you had it with you, and I was curious if that's something
Oh.
that's easily.
We can do that offline and do it with staff. Matter of fact, I'd suggest that you do just that.
yeah, we can do that.
Perhaps it would be better to arrange a meeting with
There you-
with the
Attempting to
manager.
arrange a meeting for quite some time with the city manager.
Excuse me?
I said I've been attempting to arrange a meeting for quite some time with the city manager.
That's not true.
Haven't gotten one, so.
That is not true. I will meet with you anytime, and I have told you
I
that.
think that's absolutely accurate.
No, it is not.
Our emails would say so.
I would be happy to
Okay.
show you my emails.
I'll be happy to show anybody emails that say to the contrary if you're interested. That is absolutely true. And I wouldn't come here and say that if it weren't.
Well, we're not interested in seeing any
I am more
emails.
than happy to meet with you at any time and have met with you face to face. And there is an issue that I have no skill in dealing with that you've been dealing with out at the apartments, and you've been dealing with my staff, but you have not been addressing me.
I have
Well, I haven't gotten
more
them.
than a few times,
I
yeah.
have not received them.
Okay. Well, your attorney has received them and responded.
Well,
So apparently I have to go through your attorney to get a meeting with you.
no, that's not true.
Okay.
That is not true.
Well, that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm interested in this, because of the way that things have gone thus far. I'm not that interested in a subjective process of raising more money out of my pocket when I'm not getting
I understand, that's fair.
meetings and things like that to resolve problems. So I think that the whole thing should start to turn around, but I think it starts with you, and it hasn't been happening. And I haven't been able to address you because you have not responded to my emails. So
I have not received emails from you in a very long time. Your emails have gone through your attorney to our attorney. And they have not come to me.
My staff has reached out to you.
And I've returned emails to your staff. I most certainly have.
Well, I'd like a meeting, and I'd like to figure it out, and I'd like to address the questions I have related to this.
And I will be happy to arrange a meeting with Jim and myself, and we will sit down and we will give you an answer.
And that's the appropriate forum.
And I trust that Manager Amberg, you will do that, correct?
Yes, I will.
And,
Sure you
okay,
will.
thank you. We'll continue.
Are you able to tell me, just a curiosity question, who provides this ITE data? Like, who's the?
The Institute of Transportation Engineers. It's
And-
headquartered in Washington DC. It's actually a national association.
It's a what?
A National Association of Transportation Engineers.
And so is this just like a nonprofit association? Do you know much about them?
Sure. I'm an adjunct member, and
Okay.
it is a professional association, like the Association of Professional Engineers. It is like any professional association. They also have a data gathering group, which is the ITE, the manual side. They also have a policy group for transportation planning and so on. It's like any other professional, the CPAs or the American Bar Association. It's at that level of professionalism.
Okay.
And they've been around for over 100 years. And they're the coin of the realm in transportation planning.
Do they make money?
Yeah, they're a 501c3, so they're not a for-profit organization.
Okay, thank you. That's what I had pulled up, but it seemed weird to me, but thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
Well, thanks for letting us talk. I know, once again, I can't, and you all get it. This is the essence of policy. It has nothing to do with the ability to implement it or the calculations or anything else. It is really a policy call for you folks. Your revenues that you use to operate, maintain, and repair your roads is small, doesn't meet your needs, and is declining. Like every other, not every other, like many cities and counties, they've opted to go to a local control, and that means a local fee. And that's what has been going on for the last 20 years, actually. I think Oregon City was one of the first. Corvallis was out there over 20 years ago. They saw the handwriting on the wall and started implementing the fees. Much like your public safety fee and so on. You know, you see where it's coming from. Got anything else to add?
This question really is for you. You were saying that it's been about 20 years ago since you started losing the funding that was from lottery and stuff.
The ONC.
Does the state not have some sort of responsibility for this?
Not for local, they have not taken any steps that I'm aware of to backfill that need at the local level.
Oh, and think about the revenue structure of the state.
Well, they've removed a lot of.
88 cents of every tax dollar that comes in the door instantly goes out to schools and education. So there's nothing left. And I'm, bless their hearts, I'd never want to be in Salem for the things that they're facing down there, because there's just an endless need. And you're right, you say, well, shouldn't they be paying for some of that? They don't have the money. Nobody has the money.
Really, with the
Nobody.
kicker revenue that they keep touting about and stuff? I find that very hard to believe.
They don't have the money. That's just the fact.
We just voted to, well, I'm not even going to bring it up because it's kind of partisan politics, but I will say that I think there is money. I think that I was just curious.
Well, if you
there was
find it,
any-
send it to Cresswell.
If there was any attempt to backfill the funding they took from small communities, because I feel like as a small community, we should have some say in that. We should have some leverage to try to say, hey, you did this to us, how are you going to fix it? Because you're right, when you say that people think roads are free, that's because we were told that when we go fill up our gas tank, that funds the roads.
And it's
Now-
simply not true.
But whether it's true or not is irrelevant to me. The fact is that's why that is the perception out there, and that's what we face. The people that don't understand, they feel like they're being taxed twice or 3 times for the same thing, and it gets tiresome, you know, and this is why so many people that I've talked to have said, hey, you know, I get it, I know this is needed, but I would like to see something that defines what projects are being worked on, how much it's going to cost, and vote on that, not something that doesn't sunset. That's what I hear over and over again. And so that's where I'm coming from. And I understand what you're saying. I understand this need, but I'm trying to make it, because I feel like this is a tax that's not being called a tax, I feel like the voters should get to decide. And it's just me. It's just where I'm at with it.
We do have a document that lists all of the projects and all of the costs. It's called our Transportation System Plan, and
That's right.
that is on our website.
I'll
So,
revisit that, thank you.
yeah.
Well, it's over 20 years ago when the first OWL came into play. The state took away the ability to log like we used to, so the state took away the funding because they made new regulations because of owls and other things
That was federal.
that turned out to really not be as big a deal as they thought, and they've limited us ever since and have never brought it back. As we keep going green, we're not recycling our green.
That's right.
Did you have something, Mr. Piper?
Also
Drew?
with, yes, thank you, President. Yeah, on the, when we hand out the budget every year, we also hand out a 5-year capital improvement plan. And so that has our projects in the next 5 years, and streets is one of them, and it details the project and the funding sources. So there is that as well. We won't just spring a project on the council or the budget committee. And to the point of funding sources from grantors, the first thing they want to know is what funding mechanisms we have internally to either meet those matching contributions or and they kind of look to the communities that have that first before they you know make those funds available to other cities.
Aren't we one of the smallest, though, trying to do this? I mean, isn't there something to say about the size of the community as well? Because I think most of the other communities that have done this are quite a bit larger than us. I think Veneta might be the closest. Coburg, maybe.
Well, I don't want to get in the weeds on that, but
So we had 2,000 and we did one.
Okay.
granting agencies almost universally look at median household income as the basis for grant allocations. And I know we talked about this, but you're one of the wealthiest communities in Lane County.
Based on a number, not on reality, though. We don't know how many of those households are families of
Census
with
data.
one income.
If you don't believe the census, then you don't believe the data, right?
I didn't say I didn't believe the census data. We just don't know the demographics behind that census data, do we?
What do you mean?
How many of those families that make the median income are families of 6 or families of 2 or one income
Actually,
or
the
2
census, the
incomes?
census data does show that.
It does,
It
okay.
does, absolutely does, yeah.
Do we have any other questions for Mr. Donovan? Anyone? Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess we can, does anyone have any questions about the, regarding the amended ordinance? Questions, concerns?
I think that you already confirmed, and I checked it earlier, that one place was amended to go to that newest, the other committee. Yeah.
Any comments from our mayor? Can you hear me, Mayor?
Yes,
Oh, and he has his hand
yes,
up.
thank you. Thank you, Alonzo. So, I have kind of just a couple different things. A couple of echoes I found on page 2.
Huh?
You're going in and out. Try again, Mayor. Say again, Mayor, you're cutting.
Page 2 of the ordinance,
Okay.
section 4.
Looks like that's page 28. Oh, no, I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm looking at the ordinance, where it's page 1, page 2, backside. Just that this needs to be capitalized to T. And then, we talked about the appeal process. So as I talked to, I looked over the last list that we got from, that has maybe 25 on there, 76 service stations start for schools and Blue Valley Beach. So I had information with all but 2 of those. And several of the business owners were not available, so I left the information for them. But it's been really important to a number of the churches and some of the businesses as well, that they know they can appeal this. So I think that's something I'm really pleased that we have in there. The review program, I really like that, the amendment we made. I think that's a really good addition. Then, let's see. On page 13 of 13, this is the tough rate schedule. At the very bottom, it says class 1, 2, and 3. I just noticed that circumstances was misspelled.
That was me.
And then I really appreciate, what?
That was me.
I appreciate very much the Q&A, transportation utility fee Q&A that was done. So Michelle or Jim, whoever, if that was a combined effort, I thought you did a wonderful job putting that together.
That was Jim.
So those are my comments. I did have one other observation. As Steve has talked about, there's a need to communicate, for sure, with people.
We lost you, Mayor.
Brain freeze.
Are you trying to get him, Jim?
And can you hear me?
Now we can.
Now we can.
Now you can. So, how many did you miss?
Probably all of it. All of it.
All of it, let's see.
You left
I
off
made a
at,
comment,
okay.
We left it
Go ahead.
that you had caught the misspelling of circumstances.
Yeah.
That's where we lost you.
Yes. Okay, the next comment I made was that I thought that the Q&A, the question and answer sheet was very, very well done, and I appreciated Michelle, Jim, or Steve, whoever put that together.
Jim.
So thank you, that was well done. And then my last comment was just in terms of timing. We talked about July 1st, that it wouldn't be enacted before July 1st, but I think that if the council to approve this at the May meeting, we get into a very short time window for staff to implement it.
Uh-oh, we lost him
I'm not
again.
sure that it's realistic to expect that it would be implemented that quickly.
Can you, I'm sorry, Mayor, can you repeat that
So
again?
those are my comments.
I think we missed something important you were about to say. Can you repeat what you just said?
I was talking in terms of timing.
Yes?
Timing, if the council approves it at the May meeting, then I'm just not sure it's realistic to expect our staff will be able to have it ready for implementation by July 1st.
Jim can
So
answer
if that's
that.
the case,
Mayor, just a second. Jim can answer that.
Yeah, I think the ordinance in section 3 covers that. It says the city manager is the delegated authority to implement the TUF created by this title when administratively feasible.
So there you go.
But
You're
no
up.
sooner than.
Yeah, you're already covered. Yeah.
I'll get you in a bit. I think you come back on, yeah.
It's hotel internet, I think.
Okay.
You're back.
No,
No.
Let's see. Should we turn the camera off? That might help with,
Yeah.
yeah, I think I'm gonna, let's see if I can turn this camera off. Mute. Very good.
Dave, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
That's better.
We can't see you anymore, but we can hear
Yeah.
you clearly now.
Yeah, we can hear you real clearly now, so that's real helpful.
Well, I was done.
Okay,
I have
Counselor.
a question for you, Michelle. So what is our rush? I know that there was some grant money out there, and I know you guys have been working on this for a long time, so forgive me, I'm catching up, and I understand the work you guys have put in the past. But other than the grant money that I think was like $60,000+, now, I don't want to prolong this, but I want to make sure that everybody's got their say in it. So what is the rush, other than that grant money?
There was no rush. It was something that we hoped would line up with the budget cycle.
Okay. So if we waited till January 1st, it's not going to get in the budget.
January 1st is a hard time to start a new fee, to raise a new fee, because people are coming off of the holidays, and it's really gets a lot of people by surprise. It's much easier to do it maybe in the fall, or the summer, or spring.
Okay. So if we waited till January 1st, though, you're saying it might not, we might not be able to get it done?
January
Or
1st?
I think
July.
she's saying people would react worse
July.
in January.
July 1st, sorry. Excuse me.
It's hard to say. Jim's got a lot of work to do on the budget. Everyone is maxed out in our offices. This is another thing to add on top of it. We have an employee who's probably going to go out on maternity leave, who will be directly involved with the billing. So we have a lot of factors to look at.
Well, and with that said, I know Mr. Donovan had a really good suggestion about the letters. And I would like, I think he had his hand up too, Mayor to weigh in as far as directing staff to implement those letters. I'm more than happy to make some of the phone calls, but is that something realistically that you could be accomplished?
Well, the letters we can bulk do. I mean, we can write one letter, we can print them out in bulk, and we can mail them. So that's not so hard. Doing the follow-up phone conversations would probably involve Jim and I, and that might take, and Cliff. Yeah. And that may take some time. But as I understand it, what Mr. Donovan proposed is that they happen at the same time. So this would be going through the city council at the same time as we would be doing the outreach. So one wouldn't preclude the other.
That would be my recommendation, keep it moving. My experience with the implementation is it's actually pretty easy. The reason it's pretty easy is because you've got a billing system that you're already sending water and sewer bills to these folks. This is not like you've got to buy new software, you've got to implement a whole new database. The database is there, it's just adding another field on the record, for that matter. So I
For
don't...
the 97% or whatever it is, the 93%.
93%, yeah.
That would be true, but for the remainder,
The 146
calculations
accounts,
have to be
the
done by hand.
calculations have to be done, and that's where the heavy lifting is, and that's why I suggest you get moving on it. And I mean, if it gets to a point where you're getting a lot of confusion, yeah, you mean, a great point, then pause, But there's no reason to say, let's just stop. and not
Absolutely.
move forward.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And I think we did kind of pause a little bit already, just to help get the word out. And I wanted to add that since we've last met, I have spoken with several other people, and lo and behold, 3 people have seen it now on social media and are aware of it. So, and that's progress. So I'm not saying that we delay it any further, but that is very important. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know how realistically that letter thing can do. That's a question for you, and I think it's a great idea. And I'd really like to hear, our mayor has his hand up again.
Nicholas asked the question, what's the rush? And while I agree there isn't a rush, one of the conversation pieces, I believe a month ago, was that there is a grant available of upwards of $60,000 if the city actually has a transportation project that's in the works by the end of the calendar year. Is that correct?
That's correct. We did get notification we need to start a project and spend that money, or the state is going to basically turn it over to someone else. Those monies are earmarked for the city of Crestwell, and we have to do projects that are listed in the transportation system plan.
Is it
So my
matching
point would
money?
be that we have the plan. My point would be that we have the plan. We've talked about this for several years, and we have $60,000 available, which is basically a quarter of what we're talking about needing to raise in the first place. If we can get it done within this calendar year, that's $60,000, and that's a good chunk.
I'm confused, is that $60,000 reliant on us having a transportation utility fee?
It doesn't require a match at all. It's just money towards the project.
So the answer is we get that money anyway.
If we don't get the fee, if we don't have the fee, we don't have enough money to do a project.
Okay.
So we wouldn't get the money.
Right.
We wouldn't get the 60,000.
But the fee and TUF are exclusive, they don't rely on each other. You're saying the TUF really would just get us to having the money to do the projects that the $60,000 grant would afford us?
The $60,000 plus the TUF gets us a project.
Right.
If we don't have the TUF, we don't have enough money for a project, we will not get the 60,000.
Okay.
The grant accrued to the trust.
Is that clear?
Mhm.
Okay. Anyone else? Anything to add? Any questions? Well, if there's no other questions, we can move on to our next discussion item. Thank you, Mr. Donovan. And that would be the moratorium, and that is Madam Tramber.
Right, I'll do my best on this. This is really a Ross thing, but Ross couldn't be here tonight. Because we are in the situation we are with our MAO for the wastewater treatment system, we are limited in the number of hookups that we can do. And our city attorney strongly recommends that we enact a moratorium to protect ourselves during this time. Otherwise, what could happen is a developer could come in and could demand a hookup, and we have nothing on the books that says, no, we can't do a hookup. So we would be in the strange position of telling a developer, no, we can't do a hookup, or in the strange position of having a hookup forced on us and being in violation with the DEQ. So
Moratorium on building.
the moratorium is on building. And it would be for the west side of the city, west side of the freeway.
To the east side is Emerald Valley wastewater, correct?
That's correct.
All of it.
Yeah.
And you're saying we have to put in an official one,
Yes,
even though the state's telling us we can't?
that's right, in order to protect us. Otherwise,
From lawsuits.
From lawsuits.
Okay. That makes sense.
I recommend. I'm with that.
Anyone have any questions?
More.
I kind of have, did you have something, Councilor?
Nope.
Well, it speaks of the, when adopting a moratorium based on the shortage of sewer capacity, we get all that, then the city is also required to adopt a program to correct the problem, creating the moratorium within 60 days. I was curious, as what does that look like and how long are we talking?
Yeah, I can answer that, but Cliff could answer it as well. We have the MAO, so that is our corrective program. So we are not going to make enough progress in 6 months that the moratorium will be lifted. So we will have to extend the moratorium. There's a certain number of times the moratorium can be extended, and then Ross has to get involved.
Okay.
So this is a process that we're starting here, but it's not a short process, and it will be something that we'll have to revisit over the 7 years that we have the MAO. But we do have an MAO that says the first thing that we have to do is smoke testing. So Cliff has already started working on getting together information to make that happen as soon as the budget is passed next year.
So, and would I be correct to assume that this moratorium is probably going to be for quite some time?
Yes. 7 years.
It's not single family, it's just a more grander, like apartments, or is it single family dwellings? as
Well, the way that this is written, it will allow us to do the connections that the MAO provides. So as we are making progress towards the DEQ's list of,
Demands, basically.
yeah. We'll be able to, build, like right now we have 15 hookups. So we can put in 15 hookups, but we can't put in any more than that until we do the smoke testing. And then after we do the smoke testing, I think we get another 5. And then after we do the repairs, we get another 15, I think. So it goes like
We
that.
can lift the moratorium sooner
If,
we magically got everything done. So
Yeah.
5 years instead of 7?
yeah, yeah. In fact, the moratorium, I believe, can only last 6 months at a time.
That's what I
And you have to
thought.
renew it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm confused. If we put in a moratorium, wouldn't that make it so we couldn't use those 15 hookups?
No, this is written so that we can use the hookups that are allowed in the MAO,
Just not add more?
not more.
Okay,
Right. It protects us from somebody demanding us to do
Okay.
16.
okay.
Is a hookup one household, or is it an apartment building? With 6 apartments, is that 6 hookups?
It depends on what's being hooked up, and it's not necessarily, Cliff can answer this, it has to do with 300 cubic feet, is that right, Cliff?
It's built on a flow chart that's published by DEQ, and an EDU is equivalent to 300 gallons per day. And so depending on if it's an apartment complex or commercial, if you go through their list, it tells you what that complex will generate per day, and then you have to divide out the math by 300
So it could still
gallons
be a
per day.
commercial unit.
So a
but-
commercial unit might be,
Eat
5
all
or
of them up.
6
Okay.
equivalent hookups, and an apartment might be a half.
Okay.
You have to go to their list.
The state laws, I believe, that govern this, they prioritize what can be built. So housing comes first, and low-income housing comes at the beginning of that. So if we were to have several developers come to us with competing demands, we would have to take the low-income residential first.
And that is why the moratorium versus someone who is demanding all the big hookup versus a home. And then you can't, so you can say to the person that wants to say, hog up all the hookups, you can say, no, we can't do that? Or,
No, we're doing the moratorium because a developer could come in and demand that we hook them up, regardless of the number of hookups the MAO says.
and the
And the
moratorium.
moratorium protects us legally.
Okay, yes, that's what I was looking for. Okay. We have a question for the gentleman.
I think she sort of answered what I was going to ask about how do you determine who gets the hookups? But and that makes sense, the low income would come first. So is there a state law or something that guides that, a moratorium that, or guides who gets those hookups first, or is it just in your moratorium write-up?
I believe it's in state law. That's what our attorney told us. And it's ORS 197 is where you can find it, starting in the 500 series.
I mean, I'm supportive of us moving forward with a moratorium, because I want us to be able to continue to grow Crestwell, and I think with the DEQ order that we have, I think this is the step that we have to take, while we're also improving our infrastructure in order to be able to do that. So it is painful, and I can shake my fist at it, and I think it's the right step.
Absolutely, we can't stifle our own growth. So,
It's unfortunate.
yes, absolutely.
It's very frustrating because I feel like Crestwell is perched at a place where it could grow. I feel that it's also at a time when there's money that's available, going to be coming available for low-income housing, and we will not be able to take advantage of any of the grants or any of the programs that will be coming down the pike, and that's unfortunate. We have people who are interested in expanding the mobile home park, which would be low income, but they can't do it because they can't get hookups. It's very disappointing.
It is. So, any other questions, discussion? So now, okay, so
Real quick, you said that was just for the west side. So on the east side of the freeway, the larger lots and stuff that are available, those would all have capacity on that side of the freeway to hook up?
If they have main line to them, then they can be, then laterals can be built to them. If they don't have main line, then no, because DEQ is in negotiations with the owner of the wastewater treatment plant on the east side. He doesn't have financial assurances in place, and they want him to put financial assurances in place so that if he were to go under, the property could still function and the city could take it over and run it and still provide sewer treatment. He has not done that. We've had conversations with him. We're working towards that so that that main line can be installed. But where there's no main line, there cannot be development.
our mayor has his hand up.
I just had a question on the draft from Ross on the back page. It talks about the moratorium can be extended up to 3 times, 3 6-month extensions. That comes to a total of 18 months. Is that enough? So I think previously the conversation was just moratorium could last for 7 years with some building allowed as we complete projects.
Right. No, it's not enough. And I asked Ross about that, and there have been incidences throughout Oregon where cities have put in moratoriums. Banks has a moratorium on water right now that has been in excess of the limited amount of time. So Ross is researching that and looking into it, and he will guide us through this process as we get closer to that end point.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. That was all.
Well, I think we should wait for Councilor Osborne to return in case she has a question. In the meantime, anyone else?
We need a motion then?
Well, it'll be my next question will be, what's next? What do we do?
Next will be that you'll get the resolution coming to you in April. And you'll have it for consideration of approval or not to approve.
Gotcha.
My staff highly recommends approval
Mhm.
because it's legal protection for us all. Otherwise, we get into land disputes and go to LUBA, and it can get very expensive,
Sure.
very fast.
Well, if it's coming from our city attorney Ross as a recommendation, we probably should take that advice. Any other questions, Councilor Osborne?
No, I think everybody asked the same questions I
Okay.
had about it.
Well, if that's it, then we can adjourn this meeting.
Council President, were you going to allow William Kent to speak?
Oh, I am so sorry. Thank you. I'm sorry, so sorry. I apologize. Mr. Kent, we have a gentleman who wishes to speak.
Yeah, my
William
audience
Kent.
is left, but I'll go ahead.
I apologize. That was my fault.
Mayor Stram, committee members. What I wanted to speak on was the Cresswell First, and I've been volunteering up at the food pantry. And I just wanted to say, it's really well multiplied, the money that they receive, given the number of volunteers and the volunteer hours that are put in. It astounded me. I had no clue, so I volunteered up there to find out what was going on. I lucked out and I got a front row, so I'm out there meeting all the people as they come through. And what I wanted to tell you is he's right. It's well over 100. It has nothing to do with COVID. It has to do with the economy. And what I'm seeing is all the people in Cresswell that are probably a food basket away from maybe being on the streets. That's how tight some of them are. They come in with cars with the hood strapped on. They come in with their pets, and if anything goes missing, it's pet food. Whoever thinks of donating, it almost feels like an insult. But I had to go out and try and beg pet food from the local businesses, and they all have lawyers who say, no, we can't sell you the broken pet food. So I did find some people in town that would donate some pet food because they're members of the family, and you see them. And it's well over 100. We've just voted to where we're going to stay serving them outside because there's no way we could get them inside the building with the staff we have and the time and everything like that. So my message really, it was for Steve Carmichael. And if you're watching the end of this, Steve, I told you thanks, and I really want to say thank you to the committee that voted the money in to help the food pantry. It's well received. It does help Cresswell. And so, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Kent. Okay, now with that, I think we're ready to adjourn. Meeting adjourned.